So I first want to start by taking and asking everybody to take a moment now and think about what your marketing purpose is. Are you looking to drive engagement? Are you developing strategy? Are you just sort of looking to learn what's next? How should we do this? Are you now a manager, a marketing manager or marketing coordinator who all of a sudden has an extraordinary amount of responsibilities with PR? I'm assuming most of your jobs have shifted and pivoted at some point over the last 3 weeks. So do you have a CEO looking at you saying, hey, what do we do now? And you're like, gosh, I'm trying to figure that out myself. There's lots going on. And obviously the emotional temperature is very charged right now, which also will affect your marketing. So the topics that I want to talk about really are primarily ethos related and also storytelling related. We are going to talk about improving lives, honesty, tone and empathy, investing in your content, understanding your story. I'll briefly touch on digital marketing, but obviously tomorrow our VP of Strategy, Kelly Mantell, is going to have a very specific digital marketing webinar about how to get your e-commerce tuned up and how to
do me a favor.
And then on Tuesday, we will, Marvin will be talking about how to get your digital advertising set up, because we have a lot of brands who now need to completely pivot how they sell their products. We want to address that. So number one, the first thing is, let's remember that our topic here is to improve lives. Now's the time to focus on how a brand can improve lives. It's not the biggest party. It's not how you can make the most exhilarating experience, but it's how can you actually help the quality of somebody's life? How can your product make them feel better? If you're an ice cream company, how can that ice cream be the cornerstone of somebody's day? I know in my house, having our treat is definitely something that we all look forward to when we talk about. We've made it into an event. So, that's important too. It's not just about the shelf-stable products that the rice and the beans, and although we love those products and we work with a lot of those kind of clients here at this agency, it's also about enjoying what you can do. So, one thing I just want to lean on is a lot of you were doing marketing back during the Great Recession in 2008. I know I had already started my business. And there's something I just want to tell everybody is, hopefully this is comforting, and that is that from hard times, marketers are the first to adjust, the first to learn, and we're the first to alter. So in 2008, that was still the time of the biggest event, have a couple journalists. That was what marketing was. And guess what? From 2008, that was basically the birth of mainstream digital marketing. While yes, the internet was already around, yes, there was social media, that was the mainstream kickoff of it. And we all changed how we did marketing ever since then. So from that, good can happen. And that's what I think is going to happen here during this reset. We don't have an official name other than, COVID-19 or coronavirus, but there will be a reset. And in my mind, I think that I'm going to hold steady on the fact that I think that we're going to get to a place that is uncharted territories with a greater heart. So the first is honesty. Investing in your brand truth, or if you are a farmer, investing in the authenticity of your craft. If you are a marketing manager at a service company, investing in the truth of your messaging. But investing in honesty has never been more important. What is your company's ethos? What do you stand for? How do you treat your employees? Are you quick to pivot and make decisions for your employees' health? Do you lead the charge? Do you follow suit? Are you waiting for a governor mandated shelter in place to make changes in your company, or are you quick to do it? We are in our third week of work from home for our company. And I can tell you we're adjusting and we're aligning, and I'm seeing a lot of our clients do the same. Obviously, a lot of our clients are in the ag and food industry. That's the bread and butter of what we do. So with that, those are essential services. And that's where we have to help those clients understand, how do we tell that story? How do we tell the story of our social responsibility? How are we educating our employees? We need to continue milling the rice. We need to telling you working the land, farming doesn't stop, dairies don't close. So those are all important messages for people to understand how, why, and being honest with that messaging. One thing that I have been really intrigued by over the last 3 weeks is quickly learning which brands and companies had their marketing ducks in a row, who had their house in order. We've all received tons of mass emails. Now that's starting to become a media centerpiece, is understanding and diving in and analyzing those emails. Were the brands, we can tell very easily which brands were written by the legal team to cover their you-know-whats, and which brands were written by their marketing department showing ethos and ethos. So now the New York Times is writing about it. Washington Post has covered it lately. But the best emails that I have seen are from brands who were very honest and obviously caring. The brand that says, whoa, this is a lot. We're dealing with it, you're dealing with it, let's get through it together. Let's give you the information that we have so that we can all be better. That is what is next. So like if you're looking at a brand like Etsy, they've messaged that this isn't about the shipping times, this is about supporting small businesses. And so how their messaging has been very interesting. The other danger, of course, is becoming completely tone deaf. There's been a lot of talk about like the death of celebrity culture. For example, do we really want to see a celebrity on a private plane talking about like a new eye mask? No, that's not where we are right now. What we want to hear about is the brands that are doing good for the most people. So let's put that into the context of food and ag for a minute. Food. So if I'm a food brand, now might not be the right time to roll out the latest, most luxury product that is not really accessible to very many people. Although, again, like I said, my ice cream example, there is a time and place. We all need to have a local beer. We all need to have some ice cream. We all need to have a cookie. But, and we all know we're all drinking our wine, right? But really, for that luxury company, now is when we can talk about how to very best help your neighbor. How can everybody have more accessibility to that? Why is that shelf stable? Why is that perishable item worth it? Why and how can we help and share that experience with as many people as possible? If I'm an ag company, now's not the time and place to talk about how your equipment line can like blow through a field faster and better than anyone ever before. Now's maybe the time to talk about how you are helping your workers, your social responsibility practices, your sustainability practice. Now it's time for people to understand that ag companies also are navigating tough times, and that our American farmers are here for the long haul and at the most steadfast profession of any. So let's talk about that. And of course, all of that has an underlying tone of empathy. We are having empathy for ourselves and empathy for the people around us. Next, this is something I talk a lot about with all of our clients. Investing in your content. What is your story? Obviously, now we all have a little bit of free time on our hands. We're probably doing a lot more due diligence. We're doing a lot of writing. We're probably trying to distract ourselves from the news. Now is the time to make sure that your brand, kind of your, ducks in a row. Making sure that your social media is intact and tonally appropriate. Making sure that your descriptions are accurate. Take the extra time to do an extra proof. Is there something else that you can add to it? Make sure that your photography is in line. Making sure that your website is actually current. Is it up to date? Is your e-commerce store working? Are your links all working? Does what you say on social media match what you're saying on your website? And again, Kelly's going to dive into this tomorrow when he really gets into the e-commerce side to help brands. But get that messaging and tone and aligned. So again, ag brands, now's the time to talk about some of the things that you have been meaning to, but maybe haven't, like your sustainability practices or your social responsibility practices. What about those certifications that you spent hours and hours and months and sometimes years looking to earn? All those certs, now's the time to talk about why you did that and how that has made your processing plant a safer place to work, higher food quality, more accessible, opening up new markets. I mean, those are all things that are definitely worth the time to and place to talk about. Food brands. What is your story? What does artisanal mean to you? What does sustainable sourcing mean to you? Let's talk about your ingredients. What and why do your ingredients matter? Why are they a cornerstone of what your product is? Those are all important for us to learn. And now again, we have the time, a lot of us, because we're not driving around, we have the extra time to talk about what our ingredients are. And if you have questions, you're like, gosh, now would be a great time to pick up the phone or email your broker or email your processing plant and be like, can you really talk to me about my product? I want to know it more. I know that I buy almonds from you, but what kind of almonds? What size almonds? What variety of almonds? Why is that different? How does that variety taste different than that variety? Understand your food ingredients, because again, you likely have a little bit more time on your hands, so why not educate yourself and then transition that into your story messaging. Okay, next, digital marketing. I talked a little bit about this a second ago, but again, understanding opportunities. Digital marketing is basically, we are officially at the future, everybody. Digital marketing is what matters the most right now when it comes to telling your story. So you've got your why. Why am I telling the story? Because it matters to you and you want to share the ethos and the honesty. But now you transition into the how do I tell this story? And again, Kelly and Marvin are going to touch on this in the next 2 webinars, and I'm really excited for that because they absolutely have that down to a T. So what does the next 12 to 18 months as a marketer look like? What does it sound like? It certainly doesn't sound or look a lot like the last 12 to 18 months. Again, now that I have been doing this for 20 years, I've got a little bit of historical context. And again, let's go back to that 2008 experience with the Great Recession, which was really challenging if you were a marketer, but a lot of growth came from that. And a lot of innovation came from that challenging time. And I think that's what we're going to see here with a broader heart. So trade shows are going to look different. We've all been invited to virtual trade shows. Obviously, I'm having a virtual event right now, but a lot of these trade shows have gone virtual. Networking has gone virtual. I think we're going to see more of that, which is going to allow people to really deep dive into what their expertise is. And we are going to get more and more nuanced. We are going to understand more and more who and where our lane is. And we're going to continue to dive into that lane and peel back the layers of the onion so that we can understand more and more. And I'm excited about that. And again, that's why all of this sort of storytelling all aligns, right? We are telling them, we want to tell the story, we want to understand our why, we want to understand our how, which goes right into digital marketing. Will printed materials still have a place? Absolutely. There'll always be a place for printed. We need texture. We need to feel the ownership of that. Of course, that's going to change. There's probably not going to be as much printed materials. And again, because people are really curating what they receive. If I'm receiving a printed magazine, which I do receive a lot of industry printed magazines, it's because it is right in my lane and I want to go super deep on it. I think there's also going to be a time and place for direct mail. We see that a lot in our ag industry. Direct mail still is very effective. But again, it's what's the story? Why are we doing this? Why are we assuming that somebody wants to know this? Using our ethos and putting our best thinking caps on for them. So this is important as marketers. We're typically go-go-goers. A lot of people need to remember that more is not always better. Just because people are captive on their phones and they're scrolling football fields worth of content on their iPhones doesn't mean that their time doesn't matter. So if we have a message to send, let's send it in the most in the most kind of dutiful way. Blasting content for the sake of blasting content is not going to get us where we need to be. Same is just like with junk mail. It will go and be recycled immediately. And I think that now people are probably, I know I've done this myself, I'm being very cognizant of what blasts I'm getting. I have done a lot of unsubscribing lately, but I've also done a lot of deep diving into quality content from brands that I really, really trust. So again, what do I really want to make sure that we all focus on? It's diving into our story, understanding our why, understanding our options of the hows, and really focusing, if I'm a brand company, focusing on my ingredients, focusing on my, if I'm a food company, sorry, focusing on my ingredients, focusing on my people, focusing on why and how this isn't a great experience. And now that people, I know I'm doing this myself, I've been doing a lot of exploring on Amazon with different food products. Again, because I have a little bit more time, I'm not driving to meetings all day anymore. Like the other day, I opened a package and it was just this amazing package. I had never tried it before. It was a locally sourced green curry company. Opened it, it was this wonderful packaging experience. It aligned with their social media experience. It was this wonderful food brand experience. And it made me just think, gosh, if I'm doing this, I'm sure a lot more people are doing this. So let's really tell their story. I read the back of the package, right? And before all of this, I might have just blown it up, washed it, put it in the recycling. So understanding that that's where the opportunity is to tell that honest and integrity-filled story from the field all the way to the final experience, from the soil and from the orchards, telling that story of who is working those orchards, how are they working that orchards, and understanding that whole story all the way to the end user of the food is why are you happy and why do you want them to share and love that story. So with that said, here's my sort of PSA, and then I would love to open this up to question and answer. My PSA is that our agency is committed to this. Quite frankly, I've never felt more empowered to help on a marketing front. I feel like now is the time for our agency to really do what we do best, and that is to help food and ag brands tell their story in a very accessible way. We are committed to being part of the solution, not the problem. That's why we've been working from home for weeks now. Each day of shelter in place, I am committed. I've given my word that I'm going to be sending a marketing email. Some of you might have received it, but I'm sending sort of my thoughts on marketing and tips and suggestions. Maybe some of it's motivational. I've gotten some feedback that it has been. I think just sort of understanding the opportunities that are out there. Our blog is chock full of information, especially work from home. The majority of our company are millennials, so they have really embraced how different tips to work from home. We are kind of all getting into it. We have a daily meditation and really just sort of focusing on doing social time also, and also very, with our videos. So with that said, I would love to open it up to Q&A. Put me on the spot. Give me any questions. Most of you are on mute, which I appreciate, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can. And if I don't know the answer, I would like to loop back with you afterwards. So if anybody has any questions, I can't see faces right now. I can only see your names. So feel free to just, feel free to ask any questions.
Hey, Allie, I'll go first. This is Adrienne Gifford. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Adrienne?
Good. I was wondering, I really liked your tip on the idea of getting samples sent out. I think for all of us who have been continuously stuck at home, it's almost like a return to like, yeah, I'm so excited to have mail again and to have things show up. And since people are fearful of going out, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about maybe for the companies out there, the cost comparison of doing direct mail advertising and maybe sampling versus sort of digital marketing and just like your experience with the return on investment with those versatile advertising techniques.
Cool. Well, thank you. That's a great question. So we do direct mail, like I mentioned. I will tell you, it's in order to reach a pretty significant audience, it's thousands of dollars. And obviously, if you're sending an actual product through the mail, that's a whole different story. But what I think is an awesome opportunity is, again, if you have your digital marketing ducks in a row, you should be able to know who would really appreciate that. While I don't think canvassing a mailing list with product samples is maybe the way to go, maybe that's the future, I'm not quite sure. But I think that understanding and soliciting samples would be a very interesting opportunity. And obviously, again, we're probably not looking to do that for everybody, but I think utilizing your social media, utilizing great calls to action, utilizing digital marketing tools such as Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising with strong calls to action would likely be a really great place to start. And I agree, mail, mail, again, it goes back to the ice cream example. Mail's also now an event for the day. And it's back to simplicity. It's back to just sort of the simpler days. And so I think that people probably understanding and investing in different tactile ways of reaching your audience for sure would make a lot of sense. Thanks for asking that, Adrian. The other thing I'll mention is, thank you, Brian Betancourt, for reminding me, if maybe you don't want to ask a question over video, feel free you can chat me the question publicly, or also you can you can send it as private too. I see some familiar faces, and I know there's not a lot of shy people on here. So one question that I have received often is social media. So if you're somebody that you're like, I'm not really a social media person, but does this mean I have to do it now? I would say now is probably not the time to start it without a strategy. So obviously social media is not something that you just should sign up and start writing, be like, hey, it's me, I'm on social media now. That works for you on a personal standpoint, but if we're talking about marketing for your brand, that's really likely not the right time. But what you could do is focus on an editorial calendar, have a little brainstorm. What are all the messages I care about? Let's look at your website. What are all the things I care about? And really just taking that inspiration and going through and sort of figuring out what pictures would make sense, what captions would make sense. I would definitely recommend that. Any questions about local marketing that anybody wants to ask? Okay, well.
I actually have a question about COVID. Hi, I'm Clayton. I work. I have a question about COVID-19 and the association with your brand. Some brands say they don't want that being associated with their brand, but they always use the euphemisms of staying at home or shelter in place, where others kind of use it as a tool to, find solidarity in it, and they don't use the euphemism for it. How do you know when that's a good time to use that or not for your brand?
Clayton, that's an awesome question. Thank you. And I think one thing I didn't touch on during sort of my kind of monologue was that we don't want to appear that we're opportunists, right? Like this terrible crisis has happened. We are in scary health times. Now it's not the time to say, hey, now's my opportunity to get like really vulnerable people. That's really, we don't want to be opportunists. We more want to focus on the story and the helpful story. So to specifically address your question of, is COVID-19 messaging appropriate? I think if there's a specific solution that you're providing that completely specifically addresses this issue, that is something to sort of take into account so that you can understand, you can utilize And basically, it's so that you're being more transparent and honest with your audience. This is a problem due to COVID-19. This is a solution because of this exact crisis. So I think that taking that from making that very tactical is fine. But again, if you want to just sort of like throw that word around just to get more eyeballs because you've got a scared, people are nervous and scared and vulnerable, that's probably not the right approach. But it's definitely, obviously, I think on the back of everybody's mind. So I have a question coming in from chat. Allie, could you talk about tone more? Okay, I am happy to talk about tone. So obviously there is a lot of uncertainty right now in the world. And from a branding standpoint, I think understanding your tone is very similar to understanding how you feel as a person. And right now we are marketing to the people. We are marketing to individuals within that audience. We are not marketing to just the peoples of the people, right? Who is this affecting? These are moms, these are dads, these are kids, these are grandparents. And understanding what your tone is important. And what I would challenge each of you who are in sales or marketing or potentially leading your own companies is think about, what is my tone regarding this crisis? What is my messaging? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we working from home? Are we being safe? How are we addressing this? What's our commitment to getting our online orders out? And actually brainstorm what stops sort of the doing of your job and think about, no, this is important. We have got to understand what these are. And maybe it's a couple bullets, but making sure that your sales team understands what our positioning as a company is, because that's how they should be starting every phone call, basically understanding that it's in line with what your PR messaging is. And that should also carry over into your digital marketing. So again, you're figuring out what's your why, what's your and your social media. So really take the time to figure out what your position is. If you're a local business, it could be like, these are hard times. Here's how you can help. Buy a gift card, do whatever. If you are a national brand, this is hard times for our retailers. This is how we're helping. This is hard time for our team. This is what we're doing in the plant. This is why shipping is 2 weeks delayed, because we are working at half. We're working at half staff right now just because we need to have 6 feet apart. Whatever it is, understand what your positioning is and then share it.
Allie, this is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, I just wanted to add another little tip. I work at Dust Bowl, and we had what I would call massive layoffs of all of our taproom employees because our taproom's closed, of course, and we're just doing the to-go service of beer and food. And just a tip that I'd like to share with other businesses, our audience now includes all of those employees. Making sure your employees know how you feel and remain in the know. They know that we're working really hard to be poised to reopen and be in full swing. We've shared a lot of empathy. We've shared a lot of tips on, staying well, staying home, occupying their time, providing them information. And I think as you're talking about the marketing tips and your target audience, ours has now, we've always tried to build culture, but now is a really important time to make sure your employees feel cared about and excited to return back to work. I don't know if other businesses listening have had that, but I think it's an important consideration. We launched an internal platform for employee communications. It just so happened a couple weeks before this happened, and it's been a fantastic tool to share links, and so that's been a positive for us.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Yeah, and obviously you run the fine line of being really transparent with your employees, because at this point, as a business, you can't promise them anything. There are no promises. So really being understanding of that, but also transparent, I think, is a fine line that all business owners are really grappling with. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, about that you started your intranet or your internal chat before this happened, because that goes back to like my second point about like, we are now learning which businesses had their ducks in a row, who was able to pivot on a dime and continue business as usual if you're virtual, or, you know, who was able to continue building, you know, culture and moving on. This is sort of magnifying who had it together and who didn't, which I think is really interesting. So kudos to Dust Bowl and everybody. They're doing drive-through pickup for beer, so don't forget if you are in the Turlock area. And is that in Monterey also? Are you doing pickup in Monterey, Michelle?
When the shelter in place went in place in Monterey, we closed, but on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're opening from 3 to 7 for curbside in Monterey. We're going to try it. People were super hesitant to be out in public, but they're starting to grasp the curbside delivery, and we've had a lot of requests on social media, so we're pivoting that way.
Great.
And if anybody wants to know about the platform that we launched, we did a lot of research, and we chose to go with Beekeeper as our internal communications app. It's super cool, so would recommend it.
Cool. Okay, so I have a few more questions. We're at 10:03, so I want to be really cognizant of our time, because I did promise you 30 minutes. But again, these kind of questions are awesome, and our team is on social media all day long and can answer these questions. Also, I'm obviously accessible. But what kind of opportunities do you see farms and suppliers having during this time? What aspects of the local or California story do you think could be amplified to stand out right now? I think so many stories could be amplified from a farming perspective, but I always think that. But during special times like this, I think that now, again, for those ag companies who had some sort of medium of communication in place, whether it was an e-blast or, you know, postage stamps like letters in the mail, or their website or social media, now really is the opportunity to share what your positioning is. I think we can all here get behind the fact that we want to be supporting local, and so I think calling and contacting local suppliers. I know there's a local CSA in Turlock that is super popular right now, but really understanding kind of the opportunities how to support local is really, really critical. And I think we can all agree that we're understanding why local is so critical and why we got to keep these small businesses in business, because we're all relying on a lot of them right now. I know that I am. Okay, well, and I have one more question. You mentioned earlier about brands going tone deaf. What are the essentials in your mind to avoid being tone deaf regarding platforms and mediums to push content? What I would say there is tone deaf is sort of when you're thinking about yourself, not your audience. So what is the bigger picture? What are the bigger challenges that we have here? And sort of understanding and taking in to account. For example, tone deaf right now would be if a brand push like, can't wait to see you all in June at the next big concert that we're sponsoring. It's not the right tone. That's terrible tone. That is not where we are right now. We don't all know if we're going to a concert in June. And so, but understanding the tone of like, kind of understanding that times are uncertain and that there is lots of opportunity for kind of empathetic messaging about these exact times. So I see that there are a lot of tone questions, which I really will dive into in my shelter in place daily marketing updates. I'll make sure that tone is something that we really that we dive into from a content perspective. So it's 10:06. Please make sure and register for Kelly's webinar tomorrow. Again, we are pushing these out quickly because we want to do the most good as quickly as possible. Tomorrow, Kelly Mantel will be talking about e-commerce recommendations. He'll likely be giving an example. And then again, Tuesday is Marvin talking about how to set up digital advertising for you local brands brands or for local brands or for smaller brands across the country. Understanding how to do that right now is likely important, because that is where your marketing opportunities lie, is digital at this exact moment. So we want you to come out of this stronger. And I hope everybody thought that this was beneficial and somewhat interesting. You will be receiving an email from us later in the day, just sort of recapping some of the tips that we talked about. And also there'll be a short survey. We'd love to get your feedback. Thank you so much. And please keep in touch. I want to hear from everybody. Bye-bye.